Alright, I'm going to make a pain of me today. This is essentially the King Arthur flour version, or King Arthur baking as they're called now. Excellent recipe. I've made this probably 30 times. Works really slick. So all I'm going to do is substitute about 20% whole wheat flour for the unbleached all-purpose flour they've got in the recipe. Essentially keep everything else pretty much the same as it is in the recipe, and then just kind of go through the process. Makes an excellent loaf. So let's get set up. Putting together a pan to bake cannot be any easier. I mean, just mix everything together, put it immediately onto your work surface, knead it into a smooth consistency, do a quick bulk fermentation, about an hour and a half. Shape it into a loaf, put it into the Pullman pan, let that rise, dump it in the oven, you're done. So already I put the 115 grams of whole wheat flour and 452 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. So that's about a 20% whole wheat flour to the total flour content. Gives it a nice whole wheat flavor without making the dough difficult to work with. It's also got 35 grams potato flour in it, 35 grams of non-fat dry milk, and 35 grams of granulated sugar. You could substitute honey for that if you'd like, or any other sweetener, or leave it out altogether if you prefer. I suggest starting with it in there and then back it out and see how you like it. In addition, in the small bowl here, I've put the 8.4 grams of yeast and 19 grams of salt. I use kosher salt, and from what I can tell, you can use just about any kind of salt you'd like. So let's just add that on top of everything, and then we'll just kind of mix that together. Again, this is just me. I've actually done this several times without mixing it together first. Works just as well, but the aesthetic of mixing it together first just makes me happier. So I'm going to mix that together. And then to this, we're just going to add all of our wet ingredients directly in here. So I've already measured out about 152 grams of whole milk. Let's sit at room temperature. And I've got about 227 grams of just water. Again, let it sit at, it's been sitting out for a while, it's at room temperature. And then to that, add 85 grams of unsalted butter at room temperature. I got lazy this morning and just dumped this in the microwave. Speed it along a little bit. Usually if I think about what I'm doing, I'll let it sit overnight. Let it soften that way. But I got in a rush. All right. I use a bowl scraper for the mixing. You can use a spatula, use your fingers, use a wooden spoon, use a wooden spoon handle. I've seen a zillion different ways of doing it. It just happens to be the way I do it. It's not any better or worse than anything else, I imagine. At least what I can figure out. We'll just mix the ingredients together. This will come together really pretty darn quick. All right, almost there. Just make sure everything is just thoroughly wetted. The crumb in this bread is real fine, so we don't bother with a autolyse phase, or just put it together and knead it. It works really well. Okay. I'm about ready to dump this out on our counter and start kneading it, actually. Let's just clean this off a little bit. Put that down there. Oh, yeah. All right. This is ready to go here. All right, so let's just put just a whisper of flour on our surface. It's maybe more than a whisper, but just put a little bit of flour on our surface here. Again, this bread is not very precise. We'll just move that out on here. And scrape the bowl down a little bit. Kind of start forming this. You can see immediately. You kind of see this just comes together quickly. So we're going to need for, I don't know, how fast you need. It's going to probably take anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes or so to get the kneading done. If the dough is sticking to your countertop or your work surface, just put some a little more flour on. It's going to come together so fast, you're just going to have to do this once or twice. You can see it's already starting to look like a pretty nice dough. There we go. See that? That'd take about 40 seconds before it came together. That looks good. Okay, so it's nice and soft. It's not super elastic. Doesn't need to be. Again, we're looking for a tight crumb. So I'm not really looking for a ton of oven spring. Just want to make sure this comes together nicely. You can see it will actually form a pretty nice surface on it as it is. And it's a little tacky still, but man, it just feels wonderful. All right. And I'm just gonna prep it with a little, just olive oil. You just put anything you want. I just put a rubber band around. You use to mark the starting point. Pretty straightforward. And just this old food container. I don't know, I've had these for 20 years or so. Just put that in there, kind of pound it down a little bit. Put the top on. And surprise, surprise, it's about where one loaf usually is. All right, and again, we're not getting overly precise here. This dough right now is it's kind of cold in the house. The dough's sitting at about 73 degrees. So yeah, let's give it about an hour and a half or so and see how it does. Doesn't have to be exact. And we'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so as we said, let's get the pain de mie going. This has been it's doubled in volume in a little under an hour. This is pretty active loaf. Looks pretty good. So we're going to pre-shape this. Although for this loaf, I don't even know if this is necessary, but I do it anyway. Just kind of pull up the edges, get a bit of a top, kind of roll this thing into a ball. You can cover it with plastic if you want. I just cover it with a wet tea towel. Got a zillion tea towels, so just put that up there. That works great. So we're going to let that rest for 10 minutes. There we go. Set that over there. While that's going on, we're just going to prep the Pullman pan. And you don't really need to use a Pullman pan. You can use a 9-inch bread pan, and you can get something to just put on top of it. I like this pan. It works really kind of slick. It's got just prep this. Put a little bit of vegetable shortening on the inside. I actually never had one of these stick on this pan. I don't know if it's entirely necessary to do this, but it seems to work. And then we prep the top. And just let this sit, and we'll let this sit for about another 8 minutes or so. Let the gluten relax a little bit. We're just going to clean up, and then we'll shape it and put it in the pan. Alright, so this has been sitting for about 10 minutes. Just gives it the gluten some time to relax. And we're just going to shape this into a log, about 13 inches wide. Pretty straightforward. I just, again, this is a, let's be real exact at all. I just sort of spread this out a little bit, just with my fingertips, take the edge, fold it in like that, fold this in about halfway like that. Kind of fan the bottom end out a little bit like that. So at the end of the day, we want to try to fill up this 13-inch pan. All right, so take this, put this in here. Just start rolling up. It's a little bit tacky. I'm just going to take a bench scraper. It's going to help me a little bit forming this. Yeah, it's looking pretty darn good. Alrighty. Just going to use your fingers like paddles. Pick it up. Put it in the pan. Going to stretch it out a little bit. It is going to completely fill this pan when it's done. So again, does not have to be perfect. That is probably good enough. I'm going to put the top on. Now, this is how I do it. I put the top all the way over. And then I take, this is what I do. But everybody else. I don't do it this way, but I do it this way. Take plastic wrap, and I just put plastic wrap over it. So, this is going to rise pretty darn fast. So we're going to set a timer for 40 minutes just to have a see where it's at. At the end of the day, what we're going to want to do here is to pop it in the oven at about 350 degrees when it's a little over 1/4 of an inch from the top. And we're just going to let this sit. While we're at it, preheat the oven to 350. Minutes. That looks good. Hold on.